Attention Aggies and Bryan College Station. Rise up and march against anti-Semitism and all kinds of hatred at Texas A&M Sunday, April 7th at 1:30 p.m. at the Reed Arena main entrance. This is the time and place for our generation to stand up for what is right. Not only stand, but march to drown out the voices of hatred in our world that have even reached the halls of Congress. Visit marchofremembrancehouston.org. Come and be a part of something you'll never forget. Adolf Hitler had just two major goals. His primary goal was the forcible acquisition of living space for the German people. Secondly, he desired a pure Aryan race, which included genocide of the Jews. The Holocaust is defined as the sum total of all anti-Jewish actions carried out by the Nazi regime between 1933 and 1945. From stripping the German Jews of their legal and economic status in the 1930s, segregating and starvation in the various occupied countries, the murder of close to 6 million Jews in Europe. The Holocaust is part of a broader aggregate of acts of oppression and murder of various ethnic and political groups in Europe by the Nazis. Nevertheless, it has special significance due to the exceptional attitude with which its perpetrators, the Nazis, regarded their Jewish victims. In the Nazi terminology, the Jews were referred to as world Jewry, a term unparalleled with respect to any other ethnic, ideological, or social group. The Nazis' proclaimed goal was the eradication of European Jewry. In 1933, the Nazi Party takes power in Germany. Adolf Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany. They temporarily suspend civil liberties and set up the first concentration camp at Dachau. The first inmates are 200 communists. All books with ideas considered dangerous to Nazi beliefs are burned. 1934, Hitler combines the positions of Chancellor and President to become Führer of Germany. Jewish newspapers can no longer be sold in the streets. 1935, Jews are deprived of their citizenship and other basic rights. 1936, Nazis boycott Jewish-owned businesses. Jews no longer have the right to vote. 1938, German troops annexed Austria. On Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, Nazis terrorized Jews throughout Germany and Austria. 30,000 Jews are arrested. Jews must carry ID cards, and Jewish passports are marked with a J. Jews are no longer allowed to head businesses, attend plays, or concerts. All Jewish children are moved out of public and private schools and forced into Jewish-only schools. Jewish-owned businesses are shut down. They must sell the businesses and hand over all securities and jewels. Jews must hand over driver's licenses and car registrations. 1939, Germany takes over Czechoslovakia and invades Poland. World War II begins as Britain and France declare war on Germany. Hitler orders that Jews must follow curfews. Jews must turn in radios to the police. Jews must wear yellow stars of David. 1940, Nazis begin deporting German Jews to Poland. Jews are forced into ghettos surrounded by barbed wire and armed soldiers. Some German Christians attempted to stand up in opposition to the treatment of the Jews. Many of them were arrested. Some were executed. Others attempted to help the Jews by hiding them in their homes and helping them escape to other countries. This was made more difficult because of the rising anti-Semitism in the U.S. and other Allied countries. Strict limits on Jewish immigrants were put in place. Hundreds of thousands of Jewish people who could have been saved were left to suffer deportation to the death camps. The vast majority of German people were too afraid to oppose Hitler. They were content to live in willful, feigned ignorance of what was going on. Nazis then begin the first mass murders of Jews in Poland. The surviving Jews are rounded up and transported to concentration camps. Many were murdered immediately, and many were forced into slave labor for the Nazis. 1941, Germany attacks the Soviet Union. Jews throughout Western Europe are forced into ghettos. Jews may not leave their houses without permission from the police. They may no longer use public telephones. 1942, Nazi officials implement the final solution, their plan to murder all European Jews. By February 1943, 80 to 85% of the Jews who would die in the Holocaust have already been murdered. 1944, Hitler armies take control of Hungary and deport 12,000 Hungarian Jews each day to Auschwitz, where they are murdered. In 1945, Hitler is finally defeated. Liberation, the end of the Holocaust. World War II ends in Europe. By this time, over 11 million men, women, and children were systematically murdered by the Nazis. Nearly 6 million were Jews. The rest were pastors and Christians who opposed the horrors, Jehovah's Witnesses, Romani, disabled people, non-Jewish Poles, homosexuals, Russian POWs, and others. The March of Remembrance is a simple walk taken annually on Holocaust Remembrance Day to honor, educate, remember, and engage. We choose that day as a clear sign against anti-Semitism. We are taking the lessons of the Holocaust to break the silence of fear, pain, and shame caused by prejudice and indifference. It is a sister to the March of Life in Europe with founder Pastor Jobst Bittner, who is the initiator of memorial and reconciliation marches at historic locations of the Holocaust in Europe and whose congregants consist of descendants of Nazi perpetrators finding words their fathers and grandfathers couldn't find. We remember not only those who were lost in the Holocaust, but those who fought for freedom, the rescuers who risked their lives and hid Jews underground, our soldiers who fought and sacrificed in World War II, and the leaders who spoke out. Visit www.marchofremembrance.org for information on an event in your area. Here, Holocaust survivors, World War II veterans, and/or their families share their experiences as victims and liberators. Experience heartfelt testimonies, healing, and hope. Rise up and march against today's anti-Semitism. The March of Remembrance is a simple walk taken annually on Holocaust Remembrance Day to honor, educate, remember, and engage. We choose that day as a clear sign against anti-Semitism. We are taking the lessons of the Holocaust to break the silence of fear, pain, and shame caused by prejudice and indifference. It is a sister to the March of Life in Europe with founder Pastor Jobst Bittner, who is the initiator of memorial and reconciliation marches at historic locations of the Holocaust in Europe and whose congregants consist of descendants of Nazi perpetrators finding words their fathers and grandfathers couldn't find. We remember not only those who were lost in the Holocaust, but those who fought for freedom, the rescuers who risked their lives and hid Jews underground, our soldiers who fought and sacrificed in World War II, and the leaders who spoke out.
I'm a son of a World War II veteran. That's my dad's Jeep out there. He helped liberate the Dachau concentration camp in that exact Jeep.
Everybody asked me, well, what did we think of it when we saw the dead? We saw bodies and bodies and bodies and emaciated people that you couldn't believe they could still walk. They were walking like on stilts. And the Germans had starved them, worked them, took away their humanity, and then they killed them. They didn't just kill them, they just let them starve to death.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. soul. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me.
Shalom uvracha, peace and blessings. My name is Dan Gordon. I'm Rabbi of Temple Beth Torah and the National Rabbinic Advisor to March of Remembrance. And this is my 4th year participating in this march. And I learned something new each time. Nothing is more powerful to me at this moment than to see an Israeli diplomat and a German diplomat sitting side by side. Your words were very powerful and very touching. 70 years ago, we learned of the horrors, and 50 years ago, we began reconciling these two countries.
6 million were murdered, 1/3 of our people. In relative terms, that is like 100 million Americans. And if you cannot wrap your mind around such a number, imagine a 9/11 every day for a century.
We, the Germans of today, shall not forget the crime of the Holocaust. When we read and learn about it, these pictures and stories hurt. As humans, and particularly as Germans, we feel the pain they cause us. We, therefore, hold a special responsibility to remember the Shoah, to draw the right lessons from this deepest point of our history, and we bear the responsibility to keep remembrance alive in the future.
Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over, and surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
I sit watching my house burning right across the street, and of all the people that were in my little village, many of them were picked up as soon as the German forces arrived, taken out to the forest and shot, mostly men and boys 15 years of age and up. The little village I'm from consists of only 2,000 people. 834 people were Jewish people, and once the war was over, only 35 survived. 35 people from my little village of Brock survived. The Jewish population of Poland was 3.5 million before 1939. 90% perished.
So with all what I found about my grandfathers, I see that I have a responsibility to speak about the truth about my family, asking for forgiveness for my own indifference, and also on behalf of my grandfathers as well as my grandmothers, because they were on the same page when it came to Hitler and his ideology. It is an honor for me to stand together with the survivors and their descendants, with the liberators, saying never again.
You know, I got into teaching the Holocaust because this is a history that is being forgotten. It really is being forgotten. So at Texas A&M, we are devoted to continue the studies of the Holocaust here at Galveston and College Station. A lot of people say, well, you know, it's just another memorial, it's just another museum, right? Well, as a historian, it's a lot more than that. When we're all dead and gone, we'll have these here for our children to learn, because they're probably not going to get it in their education today.
We connect with one God, but one God has many different qualities And two of the qualities that we embrace are Avinu, our Father, Malkeinu, our King. We pray for strength and wisdom from our King. We pray for compassion and love from our Father, and the blending of the two.
And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, forever. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, forever and ever and ever. For the Lord is my shepherd, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, oh no. Forever, forever. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, only he restoreth my soul.
Right now, we're looking at a resurgence of anti-Semitism, and I think that everybody asks me, well, what should we do now? I know you people march and talk and speak, but Netanyahu, the prime minister, when he spoke to Congress here a few weeks ago, he told them which way the bread was buttered. The Jews... Like he said so eloquently, the Jews are fighting for their lives. We're fighting for votes here. So he's a hero in my...
Thank you again, and you know, there is not enough words that I can say to really thank you. I wish I could hug any of you and every one of you. I will do it afterwards. So if you want, I'm really I'm a good hugger. You know.
Visit www.marchofremembrancehouston.org, www.marchofremembrance.org for information on an event in your area. Here, Holocaust survivors, World War II veterans, and/or their families share their experiences as victims and liberators. Experience heartfelt testimonies, healing, and hope. Rise up and march against today's anti-Semitism. MarchofRemembrance.org, MarchofRemembranceHouston.org.
Wir leben in einer Zeit, in der wir uns aktiv an den Holocaust erinnern müssen.
We are living at a time when we need to actively remember the Holocaust.
Aber wenn wir nicht wissen, was der Holocaust war, der Tod von 6 Millionen Juden, die Verantwortung von Menschen, die geschwiegen haben, dann können wir nicht Verantwortung für die Zukunft nehmen.
But unless we know what the Holocaust was, the deaths of 6 million people, we will never be able to take responsibility for the future.
Wir erleben, wie der Antisemitismus in einer ungeheuren Art und Weise in Europa und auch in Amerika wieder explodiert.
And we're currently seeing a tremendous explosion of anti-Semitism in America and in Europe again.
Und ich wünsche sehr, dass dieser Park und dieses Gelände dazu dient, gemeinsam zu lernen und die Stimme zu erheben.
And I really wish that this park will serve the purpose for learning together and raising our voices together.
During World War II, I was a young child, 7 years old, and my father and family were dislocated from our home. And as that happened, my father was taken to the Jasenovac camp, which is in Croatia, on the river Sava. And I realized that after doing research with some friends, that this was a location and a duty of our people living here to remember and do something about the remembrance of over 700,000 people, of which there were 20,000 children.